Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of the She.Must.Knit podcast. My name is Erin, and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you guys had a great week. I've had a really eventful week. So last episode, I was talking about how I was getting ready for the Fiber Spirit show in Barrie that happened last Saturday, and I went to the show, and it was a wonderful show. It was their first year, and I think for the first year, it had a really, really nice turnout. I was not able to have a helper for that show, and so I found the pace of the show really, really nice for just being on my own. I was able to handle everything, and it was a relaxed show. I got to actually talk to the people who came by my booth. If you were at that show and you came by the Bling Your String booth, thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you. And I fully intend, if I get the invitation for next year, I fully intend to return. So now, show season is still not over. I have another show next weekend. I'm going to be at the Kitchener show in Kitchener. And so I'm still getting ready for that. However, it has helped having to get ready for the Barrie show. It has lessened my load a little bit for Kitchener, but I've still had to do lots of work this week, and I feel like I haven't got a lot of knitting done. I still have things to share with you today, though. I have a little bit of knitting because the one thing that I did knit on this week was my Vista Dyeworks challenge socks for the month of August. And I usually don't show those socks on my podcast because they're just vanilla socks, and I have other projects that I like to show because I try and keep my episodes to a specific time frame. However, those are the only things I knit on this week because I had to get them done for the end of the month. So I thought I'd show those and just go over how I knit my vanilla socks, what I have found works best for me, little changes and tweaks that I've made along the way. So yeah, we're going to be talking about vanilla socks today. And then the only other thing that I really did this week was spinning. So I have some spinning to share with you. And then finally, we're going to do a monthly recap. What I finished in August, did I meet my goals for August, what my goals are for September, and that's what we're going to do. So for the collection, I'm quickly going to mention, I do not have a collection for you this week. Last week the vote was between some sloth fabric and the flamingo fabric, and the votes for these two fabrics were so close. They were neck and neck the entire time. I've decided to do a double collection for next week. So next week I'm going to have a collection for each of those fabrics. And part of that was also because I had to place a yarn order after the Barrie show, and it arrived just a little too late to get all that done for this week, and plus I've been working on other things. So I've decided to do a double collection for next week. So if you voted for either of the fabrics, each fabric will have its own little collection, and I'm very excited about that. So no collection this week, but we still have lots to talk about. I'm going to take a quick sip of my tea. Again, it doesn't look like it's very saturated, but it's flavorful enough for me. I think it's a mango pear one. I have some older teas in my cupboard that I am just trying to use up before we get into the cooler weather season and I start drinking my hot teas again and my hot coffees. So I'm trying to just work through some of my ones that are better suited for iced teas. So before we get into the knitting, I am going to start with my monthly winner for August. So as I've mentioned before, every month I take the comments made on my videos or the orders placed on my website, and each comment and each item ordered counts as an entry towards a $20 gift certificate or coupon to use in my shop each month. So I have done the drawing for August, and the winner was a website purchase, and the winner's name is Laura Ambrose. And I know you're a watcher, so I always love when someone who wins is a viewer, because then I can say thank you so much. And yeah, if you contact me through Ravelry, Serafina, we can set that up. I'll get your coupon all set up. So the only other thing I want to mention before we get started, oh my goodness, you're like, Erin, be quiet, just get to the knitting, is over this past week, we eked over the 300 subscriber mark. And I just wanted to say that I am so thankful to all of you. If you watch, if you've subscribed, if you comment, if you give me the little thumbs up, anything, any kind of interaction that you make with my channel. I am just so appreciative. I appreciate every little thing. So thank you so much. I'm glad you're enjoying it, and I hope to continue on for many more episodes. So now, finally, let's get to the knitting. So I think I'm going to start with my socks. So this, like I said, this is the only thing that I've been working on this week because they absolutely had to get done by the end of the month. If you're not familiar, the dyer, Susan, behind Desert Vista Dyeworks yarn, she calls it a club, but I consider it more like a challenge. So every year you make socks using her yarn once a month. And if you have to start them and finish them in that month, and then she has different reward systems if you finish them. So if you do 3 months in a row, you get a coupon or a discount to use in her shop. If you complete 6 months, you get to choose a free skein or a free color of your choosing. Another 3 months, so if you make it 9 months, you get another discount coupon. And if you make the whole year, every month finishing a pair of socks with her yarn, you get a free skein that she has custom done just for the people who finished. So last year, I made it a point to start collecting her yarn, and so that I could participate this year. Because if you live in Canada, you know customs, and oh my goodness, so if I ordered a whole bunch of her yarn, I knew I would get dinged with customs. So I've been slowly accumulating it, one skein at a time last year, and now I can get through the whole year. So these are my August socks, and for the most part, the socks that I've been making as part of this challenge have just been vanilla, because I just find those the easiest to take around with me, the easiest to knit quickly, and I enjoy vanilla socks. So this is my August pair, and I use the colorway Harold's Purple Crayon. These are for me. I really, really like this colorway. I think these are going to be so much fun to wear. Last year, was the first time that I started knitting socks for myself. Before that, it was always socks for either my brothers or my husband. I always knit socks for other people. And so this year, over this past year, I have started knitting socks for myself. And last winter, I really, really enjoyed wearing them. I finally understood all those things people were saying about hand knit socks and how comfortable they were, and how nice they were to wear every day, and how they're so comfortable on the feet, and I get it now. So I've been making lots for myself this year. I'll have a whole nice little drawer once the weather starts getting cooler. So now I'm going to go through with you just the different parts of the sock and how I have developed my vanilla sock recipe. That's what people seem to call them, as your vanilla sock recipe, and this is what I have figured out for mine. And I just want to mention before I get into it, if you have just started making socks and you are at all feeling discouraged about the fit that you're getting with your socks, all I can say is just keep plugging. There are so many different components to making hand knit socks, and so many different ones out there. Like, there's so many different heels, and there's so many different toes, and there's so many different gauges, and so many different cast-ons and bind-offs and all that, that it might take a little while to find each piece that works best for you. So just keep going, keep knitting those socks, and you will get to something that you just love. And that's what I have found for me, that I've tried many different things, and I've now got to a point, and I'm not going to say these are my be-all and end-all, these are perfect, I'm never going to change them again, I'm not going to say that, but for now, the way I knit my vanilla socks, I am very pleased with the fit of them. So I knit my socks toe up, and just for reference, I am about a size 8.5 women's. I have, my foot circumference is like 9 inches, and I do have a wider leg, so that comes into how I customize these a little bit. And my toes, I do not have any weird pointy toes, so I have a flatter toe top, if that's the best way I could describe it. I have a flatter toe top. So I like to do my socks toe up. I have tried cuff down and toe up. I personally prefer toe up, and one of the reasons, and I've got an example to show you, is that I just like the result of the start of a toe up top much better than the finish. I don't actually mind doing Kitchener stitch, but I don't like the result I get with Kitchener stitch. So this is the toe that I get when I do a toe up sock, and you can see what I mean, how it's more of a flatter a top. Some toe shapes can be quite pointy, and when I first started doing socks, I just followed the patterns, and those are the toes I got, and I'm like, these are how my feet are shaped. So that is something that you can totally change, and there's lots of options out there for that. So I like the toe I get when I do it toe up. I like the finish. I find it very neat. And the main thing is I can manipulate my start so that I don't really get the little ears that you sometimes get. For example, these are the toes I recently finished on my Q-train socks, which were cuff down socks. And if you see what I mean, after you do the Kitchener stitch, and like the top looks fine, but after you do the Kitchener stitch, I have not been able to find a way where you don't get these like pointy little ears. And I know there are tutorials on YouTube on, you know, a little change that you make, like you just don't do the setup round and, you know, you do this or you do that and then you won't get the ears. I have tried that. I still don't get a result that I am personally happy with. So I just prefer to do toe up. I like the toes that I get better with toe up. The other thing I do is to try and not get the little points is after I do my Judy's Magic cast on, so that's how I start. Before I start working in the round just and increasing, is I'll pick up stitches between the needles on each side, and I find that helps even that out and not get the little pokey bits. So I can do that with the toe up. I have not figured out a way to do that with the cuff down, so I just like toe up. And the other thing I like is that, you know, the foot seems to take forever, but after you do the heel, I find the leg whizzes by, whereas with cuff down, it's like the opposite, and it's just like the last part seems to take forever, like that foot seems to take forever. So I'm just personally, I like toe up socks. So yeah, so that's my toe. And then also I do my socks pretty much always on 2mm needles, which gives me a gauge of approximately 10 stitches per inch. I like a really, really, really dense sock. I don't like to see space in the stitches, and I also find that this gives you a more comfortable sock. So you may have heard around people making the comments that they don't like hand knit socks because they can feel the stitches. So like on their feet when they're walking or whatever, they can feel the stitches on the bottom of their feet. And I've heard that too, and I was just like, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, what are they talking about? Well, I had a pair recently given to me, so someone else made them, and they were knit at a looser gauge, and I could totally tell what people were talking about. I could feel all those little pearl bumps on the bottom of my feet. So that just confirms to me that I like the 2mm gauge, the gauge I get with 2mm needles, the tight gauge. I like that feeling better. I find it much more comfortable. So for the foot length, I mean, that's always going to depend on the length of your foot. I think, and it also depends on the type of heel you do. Lately I've been doing the German short row heel, so you can see that here, but I also really like the Flegel heel, and depending on the heel you do, you have to start you're working towards the heel at different places. So with the Flegel heel, there's increases involved, so you have to start further down. With the German short row, you can just do the heel right where you need the heel. So I like the quickness of the German short row heel, and I do find it fits me well. So that's what I've been doing lately. The only other thing I will say is, like, usually I cast on more. So back to the toe, because I like a wider toe, I will usually cast on more stitches than will typically be stated in a toe-up pattern. And that way I don't have to do as many increases as well either. It gives me a shallower toe. And then when I get up to the heel, and after I've done my heel and I'm joining back in the round, I always pick up stitches. I pick up 3 stitches between the 2 needles as I'm going into doing the leg. And I find it really helps with the little gap that you might get in the corner here. After you join in the round, sometimes you might find that you have like a little hole there. And I find picking up 3 stitches helps with that little hole, and then it also helps with my stitch count, because I like a wider leg than I do foot. because I have a wider leg. And again, that goes back to customizing your stitches, customizing your components to get that perfect fit for you. So I always pick up 3 stitches between the needles before continuing on the leg. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was self-striping yarns. This is going to be completely personal. So you'll see with this one, this self-striping yarn is a 3-row or 3-stripe repeat. So in this case, I knit all the way up to the heel, I did my heel, and then I broke my yarn to continue on the pattern of the striping sequence. And that was mainly because it's only 3 stripes. If I had just continued on with whatever color was coming next after I finished the heel, it would have been glaringly obvious. Like, it would have really stuck out, and I didn't want that. I don't care so much, but when it's only 3 colors, it would have been like a really weird block. Like, I think it was going to join for this color again, and it was going to be like either a really wide stripe or something, you know, something very obvious. So I decided to break the yarn and rejoin to the correct color. Now, if a striping yarn has like 6 stripes or 7 stripes or more stripes, some yarns out there have like 26 stripes, whatever, I don't typically do that. So this is an example here. This was my June Desert Vista Dyeworks sock. And so after I did the heel, because there are, like you can see, there's multiple colors, after I finished the heel and joined back in the round, I just kept going. So the sequence is broken, but I find when there's so many different colors, to me, it's not obvious enough to bother me. It doesn't bother me that it's not the exact same stripe sequence going up. So that's something differently that I will do, and I will do that with other heels as well. One of the things I do make sure is that when I get up to the heel, I know approximately how long my foot has to be before I start the heel, and I watch the stripes as I'm knitting and as I'm approaching that length, and I will make sure to start the heel as I'm ending a full color repeat. So I will just keep knitting until that stripe runs out towards the back of the sock, and that's where I'll start my heel. So that part might change slightly between socks or between pairs, but I find the fit is generally pretty forgiving, that you don't have to be exact as long as you're in the ballpark. And that way I get a full stripe, I don't have any weird jogs on the front. And then I do the same thing as I'm finishing the heel. I try and make sure that it's coming around to a full color. So that's what I do for the heel. And because I pick up those stitches, let's just go back to my August socks. Because I pick up the stitches, I now have 6 extra stitches. So usually I'm in about the 70 stitch range when I'm working on the foot. And I've picked up 3 stitches on each side after I've joined the leg, so now I have 76 stitches, and I just work up the leg. My leg length can vary depending on how much time I have, or my mood, or, you know, if I'm sick of working on the socks. So, but I have learned in wearing my socks last year that I do prefer a longer leg, so I will try and stick it out and make a longer leg. I also like a longer rib. I don't like just a rib at the top, so I will do a fairly longer ribbed section. And then when I get to my rib, I add stitches again. So I do a 2x1 rib, so 2 knits, 1 purl. And usually what I do is I just work across the one side, and if I get to the end and I need like another 1 or 2 stitches to make a full 3 stitch grouping, I will add those stitches in and then do the same thing on the other side, and that just gives me a few extra stitches because I don't like a tight leg, so I add stitches when I do finish my heel and I'm working the round to give me a wider leg, and then I add a few more stitches when I get up to the ribbed cuff, so that again I have a little bit of extra room. And then with my bind off, I do the Jenny Surprisingly Stretchy bind off, and I know a lot of people say they don't like it because it flares. Here you can see it when it's not stretched out, and I mean there's a little bit of a flare. It's not horrible, and remember, like, if you're wearing these socks, like, it's going to be stretched out like this. I don't care. I don't care if it's not like a perfectly neat cast on. I will say I do prefer how the cuff looks on a cuff down like the cast on versus the cast off. But the overall process of a toe-up sock is just so much more enjoyable to me that I will deal with how the bind off looks. I will say about the bind off, I am usually not picky about very many things, but one thing that just irks me a little bit is when you are binding off with striping yarn and you get that little tiny blip of the next stripe, so it's not a full round. So you'll get like, so if this one, you know, it would be all pink, 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 and then like there'd be this little part of the burgundy because it went into the next stripe. And the best way that I have found to avoid that is I will keep knitting my cuff until I'm getting close to where I know I want to bind off. And I will keep going until the full end. So like if I knew I was going to end here and I was in the blue, I would keep knitting until I got to the very end of the blue. And then once the pink started, I would knit one full round of the pink. Not necessarily from the start of my needles to the end of my needles. If the pink started, say, here in the middle, I would count that as the beginning, and I would do one full row of the pink just knitting, and then I would cast off from the second row again, even if it wasn't on the start of my row. And I find by doing that, because with the Jenny surprisingly stretchy bind off, because you're doing lots of yarn overs to give you that extra stretch, it eats up more yarn than a typical row. And so by doing one row of just knitting plain in that last color and then doing the bind off, I usually never run into running out of yarn and going into that next color, so that you have like a weird little section of the next color. So that's how I figured out what works best for my bind off and just my sock recipe in general. And I hope hopefully there's like maybe a few little tips in there that you might find helpful. If there's any other questions you have about how I knit my socks, just comment below, let me know. I'll be happy to address them another time that I am making socks. I'm going to be casting on my September DVD socks very shortly. Well, not today, but by the 1st, because you have to start the 1st. So 1st of September, I will be starting those. And then I have another pair of socks that I need to start, and you might see those soon too. So if you have any questions about sock knitting, how I knit my socks, let me know and I will address them. So I think that's all about that. And then the next thing I have to share with you is the spinning that I've been doing this week. I feel like I've been doing a lot of spinning. I've got my wheel set up near my computer, and so anytime I'm doing some stuff that I've just I don't have to be totally engaged in, like if I'm watching, you know, a podcast or whatever, I've been spinning and I've been getting some spinning done. So the first project I have to share with you is my bare fiber. This is what I was working on all July. I needed to get this done so that I could have the yarn to work on my hand spun owl blanket, because this is the yarn that I need for all the edgings. And I finished it. I plied it, I dyed it, it is dry, and you know what, I'm hoping it will work. When I compare it to some of the other yarn that I've made for this project, this was a different fiber. This was Superwash BFL, and all the other fiber I've used for that project is Superwash Merino. And I do see a difference, and of course the spinning itself is going to be different too, because there was such a lapse in timing when I was working on this project. So it's not like I've done all the yarn at once. You know, several months or a year or more have passed between each of these batches that I'm doing. So I'm hoping it will still work with the blanket. But I finished the 2 skeins. I did film the plying because I said how I was going to try and do a little mini tutorial on how I do a 2-ply from one cake versus doing a 2-ply from 2 bobbins separately. And I did film that. I do have the footage. It's on my computer. I just have to have time to actually sit down and, you know, arrange it and try and make it so that it makes sense to everybody. But I do have that. It will be going up. I can't guarantee when. Maybe next week, maybe after the Kitchener show, we'll have to see. But I did do it. So yeah, I have these 2 skeins, and I don't even know if these are a worsted weight. Like, to me, they seem a little bit thicker. Again, I really hope these work for that project. I really want to get that blanket done. If they don't work, I might have to just get some like bare merino superwash yarn that's like mill spun, and just speckle that and use that. But I really want the whole blanket to be entirely hand spun, so we might just have to make it work. One skein is just over 100 yards and the other skein is just under 100 yards. I have one other skein that I did last year or so, so I have 3 skeins now. Once Avery is back in school, I am hoping to just sit down one week and just, that is the project that I am going to work on that entire week, and just try and get all those last little pieces done. I need this yarn to do the edgings around all the owls and the squares that I've already done. Hopefully I have enough yarn, and then yeah, hopefully if I can just sit down and work on it, I can get that blanket done. That would be awesome. That is on my bingo card this year. Bling Your String Crafty Bingo. It's on my card. I want to get it done. So I finished that. That was on my August goals. Boom. Done. Happy. Sort of. Mostly. And then as soon as that was done, I find the best thing to do if I have another spinning project in mind is just to get it on the wheel right away, so that when I have those little moments where it's like, oh, I can just sit and do some spinning, it's already there waiting for me. And so I put my next project on the wheel. And another one of my goals for August was to start a gradient spin, because another square on my bingo card is to do 2 gradient hand spun skeins, and I already have finished one for this year. So if I got a second one done, that square would be complete. And so I put this on the wheel. This is a braid of, it was superwash targi from Fat Cat Knits, and the colorway is Child's Play. Unfortunately, to get any of her fiber now, you're going to have to find it on D-Stash, because several months ago she closed up shop, and I got as much as I could justify to myself getting. So this is one of the ones I got, and it is a gradient. So you can see the oranges in the middle here. The way it worked is that it started on the purple and went through the blue, the green, the yellow, and the orange, and then it went backwards so orange, and then yellow again, green, blue, and then purple on the other side. So I have spun about half of this braid. I have my Dyeworks bobbin here, and I'm on the orange. So after I get through the rest of that orange, it kind of works backwards. I already have like the purple, the green, the yellow, and the blue on here already. I don't know, you can kind of see with Dyeworks, you can kind of see below like what the layers are. And so I already have half of this done, and I did this in a week. I'm trying to spin it fairly fine. I have kind of a happy place with spinning where it's fine enough that the yarn, the resulting yarn, isn't super thick, but I'm also not worried that it's gonna like snap when I'm spinning. I hate when I'm spinning and it just constantly like breaks because it's so fine. So that's kind of my happy place. And originally I was thinking I was going to do a chain ply. I'm gonna have to check my bingo card if I said chain ply or if I just said gradient. If I said chain ply, I'm gonna have to do a chain ply. But I was thinking if it's gradient, because it's like you know, a reverse gradient working from the outside, if I did a 2-ply, then the colors should still match up, because there's purple on the end and purple on the other end. So if I take one of each end and then ply those together, like the purples would match up and then the next color would match up, and there might be a little bit of overlap between, but that could be really pretty, right? So I don't know yet if I'm going to do a chain ply when I'm done, or a 2-ply. A chain ply will give me less yardage, but I might have said chain ply gradients, and I mean, technically, I guess I could just say, hey, it's gradient, because I'm not in for any prizes, right? It's my bingo competition, but we'll see what I said, and I'll decide how much I want to be a stickler for how I worded that goal. So yeah, so that's my spinning this week. I actually feel really accomplished with spinning. I tend to go through lulls, and I think I've done really well this week. So the only other thing that I have to talk about is my monthly wrap up. So like what I finished this month and what my goals are for September. So for August, I finished, I think, 3 knitting projects and then my spinning. So I finished the Q-Train socks, I finished that Claudine top and dress that I did as a gift, and then I finished my August DVD socks, and then the spinning that I just showed you, those 2 skeins, I finished those. And I think that's actually pretty good. Like, I was thinking to last year August, because I'm generally preparing for the Kitchener show, and this year I have 2 shows that I've been working on getting ready for. Last year in August, I don't think I had any finished objects, so I think I did pretty well this month. And then for my goals, so my goals for August, I've got my little list here because my little brain can't hold all of this information. For August goals, the first one was to finish my Q-Train socks, and I did that. To finish the first half of my Girona top and get started on the second half, I did that. To do the first chart of my Santa pillows, I did not do that. I have not touched my Santa pillows since I showed you them last, but I need to get back to them. They need to be done for Christmas. September starting, it's basically Christmas. I need to get back to those. Finish my bare fiber spin with dyeing and plying and all that. I did that. Frog 2 whips. Okay, so last episode I showed you all my whips. We went through them and I decided what I was going to frog and what I was going to keep. To all of those who said that you really enjoyed that, thank you so much. I know some of you have said that you have a bunch of whips that you want to go through. Go through your whips. It was so good for me. I knew they were there, but to actually go through them and see what I had taking up space and deciding that, you know what, these shouldn't be taking up space in my house, and like just in my brain thinking about them. So I actually did the ones that I had mentioned last week that I was going to frog. On my goal list was just to frog 2 of them. I have frogged all the ones that I had said in that episode that I was going to frog. However, whips are sneaky. And when I say whips, I'm talking about like languishing projects, not ones that you are currently working on, but they are sneaky little things. Since that episode, I have found 3 more in different places of my house. So I have them here, and these ones I'm not sure about. The first one is this bunny kit, and literally I started this like 2 years ago when we were going to a cabin. This is all I have done. I was going to make this for Avery. I don't really think she cares anymore. I think it's really cute, and what I'm thinking is I think I'm going to rip that part out just because I don't even know where I was, and redo it, and then put it in like my, you know how people will say, oh, they have this little box for gifts in case, you know, someone has a baby or something. I might do that. I might try and finish it up, put it aside for a baby gift, and then I also have on my bingo card one more gift knit for a child, like a child's garment as a gift, and maybe I'll make like just a little entrechat or a little sweater. In 3s is a favorite pattern. Do another one of those, put it with the bunny, and then that is set if I ever need a gift for, you know, a new baby girl coming into the world. So I think I will finish that, but it's kind of not a project that I'm as excited about anymore. And then the other one I found, this was in my bedroom because I try and work on these when Avery's having a bath. The child has like 3-hour-long baths. Do you have kids who like take forever in their bath? Oh my goodness. So I need to have knitting up there because I would go stir crazy. But I found this, and this is from 2 years ago when we did our yarn crawl. I got this pre-knit tube. So one of the stores we went into were selling these pre-knit tubes, and then all you have to do is add toes and cuffs and heels. And I was like, great, you know, I'll make matching socks for my brother and his girlfriend. This is as far as I've gotten. I've got the cuff on, I've done a toe, I need to cut it, and I have to put the heel in, and then I have to find the rest of the tube. I don't even know where the rest of the tube is, and it's like, I don't want to frog them because these were like pre-knit tubes, but I don't really want to work on these. So I think I need to find that tube and just buckle down. I'm pretty sure once Avery's back in school, if I took an afternoon and just put some podcasts on, I could whip out a cuff and a toe and a heel. So I need to finish these. And then the other one that I found that was a sneaky little whip was in my living room, and this was my atelier. And I have shown this on a very early episode. This is a cardigan that I want. I want this. I want to wear this. I want it in my wardrobe. And with the cooler weather, you know it's coming. You know fall is coming, and I know a lot of people are really excited about that. I think it's the perfect time to have that done. So I want to get that done. I'm not ripping that out. And then that brings us to, and the last goal I had for August was to start my gradient spin, which I did. So that brings us to my goals for September. And so my first goal for September is to finish my Girona top. I have started the second half. I just have to get past that lace. Then it will be like stocking knit forever. I think I can get that done. My next goal is either to cast on another garment, because I've mentioned how I want to start the summer line tee, or work on atelier. So I have to do one of those two things, either start another garment that I want or work on atelier. The next one is to work on those double line mitts that I showed you when I was going through all my whips. I want those desperately for when the weather gets really cold and I'm waiting out for the bus. I want to work on those this month. Cast on a kid knit, like I just mentioned. If I finish that little bunny, you know, I think it would be nice to have a little sweater to go with it. So I want to cast on a kid knit. I haven't decided on the pattern or the yarn or anything, but I want to start a kid knit. Get through 2 Santa charts is my next goal. So with those Santa pillows, I want to get through 2 charts of the Santa faces. And then finally, finish the gradient spin. I don't think that one is going to be a problem because I finished half the braid this week. And as long as I have it started and it's in a place that is very easily accessible to me, I think I will keep working on it. And it's a very enjoyable spin. The target is lovely to spin. So I think that won't be a problem to finish this month. So yeah, those are my goals for September. Have you made your goals? What are you planning to do for September? How was your August? Did you get lots of knitting done? Let me know. Did you rip out any whips? Let me know that too, because I just find that fascinating. Just what people have stashed away. You know, like you work on these projects, you're excited about them when you start, and then something happens and they just sit. And you know, why do we just let them sit? Anyway, I find that interesting. So that's all I have for you this week. Again, no collection this week, but next week I will have a double collection, and I will also be busy getting ready for the Kitchener show next Saturday. If you're going, please stop by my booth and come say hi. I have a stack of new fabrics and new bags that I'm trying to get done for that show. So there's something new if you've made it to some of my previous shows. There are going to be some new prints. And some other new items, new yarn. I have a new yarn base that I'm going to have. So yeah, if you're going to that show, come say hi. And otherwise, I hope you have a fabulous weekend. I am going to be off tomorrow, heading out to a wedding, so that will be fun. I don't know what my knitting will be like this weekend, but hopefully, again, like I've said before, hopefully you have lots of knitting time and you get all the crafting that you want to get done. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.